we did oh, probably horse, yeah. So we did horse, crouch, and cat stance. And then I did a review of those three, so we practiced all three together. Then we did back, qilin, and metal chicken stance, and then I did a live stream where we practiced all three of those. And then in the previous 3 days, I just practiced horse, then crouch, then cat stance, without a lot of introduction, a lot of comparison, maybe a little bit of deepening, maybe a little bit of warm up, and so forth. And so today we'll just practice the back stance, maybe talk about a few other ways to practice and stretch and strengthen. So we'll get a little focus on our hamstrings, I think, today. And then tomorrow we'll do qilin. That's at least the plan. I'm a Taoist, so I'm pretty antagonistic as plans come into mind. And then the next day we will do metal chicken stance, and that'll cover all 6 stances. And then I'll be thinking to myself, what stance do I want to teach next? I guess I'll do a set of 3 over 3 days, but feel free to recommend a stance. I'm trying not to do postures and gestures. So, you know, if you do Santi stance, I don't think of that as just a lower body stance. It's kind of a whole body gesture. So I probably won't be doing Santi stance in the context of this episodic adventure. So I'm gonna have a sip of the tea, and then we'll stretch a little bit. I don't know how long I'm gonna last. It's really cold, and it's not my first time teaching outside today. Thursdays we have a regular 30-minute standing class where we're teaching essentially Yichuan, the art of Yichuan. So here I am on a level piece of ground. First time I've been using that myself. It's always been a bit of a slope, but now we're pretty level. Solid ground and good contact with the ground, so you're not slipping. Ideally a little bit warm. I'm not super warm, but I'm okay. And I'm gonna do our usual sink and track. So I bend the knees and let the bent knees track towards the toes, and then come back up. Sink and track, back up. Sink and track, back up. Sink and track, back up. As we've seen with all of these, not going very far, setting the ego aside and taking a stance. Sink and track. So I'm becoming aware of the changing angle of the hip as it relates to the torso and the femur. Obviously aware of the changing angle of the knee. Good. And now I'm going to coordinate with the breath. Exhale down. Inhale up. Checking in that I don't do a bow when I don't intend to, and lean forward as I go down. That becomes easier and easier to slip into that kind of trap as you do deeper and longer and more strenuous stance training. So we're checking in on it now. I may tend to actually bow slightly forward today. I'm finding that I'm really actually quite directly facing the sun where I am. But I thought it'd be worth it because I'm in the sun, so it's probably just a little bit warmer than the camera's in the shade. And I do not relish the idea of teaching in the shade again today. The next few classes tonight are set to be outside, but the sun will be going down and we're going to be cold at the end. So you can bet I'm going to be having them do some challenging works. Good. So there's our usual knee tracking. So we're going to talk a little bit about a couple hamstring stretches. So a really nice one, assuming that you're stable, is to elevate the calf or the Achilles or the heel, the end of the foot, and straighten the leg, but we really are interested here in having stability as we do this, both in terms of where you put the leg. This is not going to be that stable, but also my own stability in the foundation leg. So a lot of people find it easier to open that leg a little bit as they come into this stretch, so that's fine. This is just the height that I have for myself, but you can do the same stretch on a lower height, and I don't have much else here that's any lower. I don't even know if this stone, so I could use the stone I've been using for some of the other practices. So we could do, this is about a shoebox height or so. So the practice is to find your stability, both in the unweighted leg and the weighted leg. So you might do this with a railing or a walker or something as well. And then coordinate with the exhalation and fold forward. And then in that final folded position, however that is for you. Some people, their chest is on their thigh. Some people, their nose touches their knee. And I'm not pushing this, not nearly at all, of course. I still have my face out of the screen. Inhale when you come up. So we'll try that again. Exhale down. And what I want to do is come down facing the foot, not just have my right chest face the foot. I want to have both collarbones the same distance from the foot. So I kind of think that my belly button is trying to point towards my knee. Exhale on my way down. Breathe while I'm down there. Inhale through the nose when I come up. We'll repeat and add a few more bits of information here. This is a stretch for the hammies. So when I fold down, what I want to try and do is try and fold sort of my belly button towards my thigh and my xiphoid process towards my knee, my heart towards the shin, my nose towards the ankle, something along those lines. The point is that I didn't do this in profile. I don't want to simply think that I'm getting lower because my head is getting lower. People confuse their head for their being all the time, and they just kind of round their whole back, and they feel, hey, I am closer. I can almost, I could see the hairs on my, on my foot or something. All right, and I've just rounded my back here. So what I do is kind of incrementally shift my focus from lowering the lower vertebra towards the upper leg. Let's say the middle vertebra to the middle leg, the upper vertebra to the lower leg. That's why I gave you those points of reference: belly button, thigh, xiphoid process, knee, heart, shin, nose, ankle. That's just to give you an idea. So try that again. I suppose I could have moved this stone a little bit further from the camera, but I'm sure you're tired of seeing my face. So I'm stable. I usually like to lengthen the spine before I do this. Turn my body to it, much like we were practicing with cat stance. By the way, I can do the same practice with my heel on the ground itself. That'll be fine. And coordinate the exhalation. This time as I do it, what I want to do is before I start to reach and exhale, I want to draw my toes in towards my knee so that I have this movement, right? That dorsiflexion that we talked about the other day. So exhale, being careful to have a sense that I'm not rolling my spine. When I get, wherever I get, breathing. When I'm ready to come up, inhale through the nose slowly. Careful not just to straighten the knee and shift the weight to the rear heel. So as you straighten out, you end up doing something like that. So I'll just come back into, this is a little closer to the height I would normally stretch at. And this is just what I have to offer today. Exhale. Breathe when you're down. Inhale. Good. So this is if you end up cramping in the hamstring, which you can do when you're doing hamstring strengthening stuff or sprinting or something. I'm just coming back in a horse stance here. It's a good idea to have that stretch under your belt, know how to do it, and find your way into it to help work out that cramp. So I'm going to do, I guess, 2 different strengthening for the hamstrings. And one would be seated. And if you have a stable chair, maybe, I don't know. If I have a stable chair, I'll bring, let's say, my right foot closer to underneath my left hamstring or knee, so it's fairly close to the chair. And my left knee is going to bend so that my forward calf is touching my rear shin. And what I want to think is that my rear shin is a fixed point and it has some counter strength to it. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to continue to bend this upper knee as if I'm trying to place that extended foot underneath the chair, so under my buttocks. Because this foot is fixed and challenging and dug into the ground, and the chair is fixed, which mine is not, right? If we do this with an unfixed chair, the chair will shift or tip, and we don't want to do that. But the practice here is for me to pull this foot underneath myself, and since I have this resisting shin, it's going to have the effect, or we want it to have the effect, of drawing my buttocks off the chair. Not so far that I fall, of course, but as this ankle comes back, there's a pivot point, and it kind of pulls me off of the chair. And of course, I don't want to go off, I just want to shift forward and then reset. So I'll do it from the other side and see if that is visible for you. So I have a fixed, I have a moving, and as I reach that, it draws me off, and that's using the hamstring. The other way to do it in a wheeled chair, a chair with wheels, is to reach forward with the heel. Doesn't have to be very far, just a bit. Reach forward with the heel and pull the whole chair towards the foot. So, of course, I don't have wheels, but you basically walk yourself across the floor by reaching the heels and pulling. So reach, pull, and of course, you know, I'd be traveling in a wheeled chair. So that's another one. I'll do one more. The reason I have the blanket here, and then I'll see if you have any questions, and then we'll do the stance. Forgot to put my gloves on. Maybe I'll do it now. So the next one will be laying on the back. And I've just put desks down here so that I don't end up damp for the remainder of my classes. So I'm glad you're here to picnic with me. So this practice is, you're going to find it harder with your feet further away. We're going to be digging the heel in, just like we said before. I guess I'll get this arm out of the way so you can see. What I want to do so that it's less for the core is separate my feet a little bit. If you keep the feet together, you get a hamstring workout and a core challenge. Since I'm trying to focus on the hamstring, I'm going to separate my feet a bit, just like we might in a horse stance. So I'm just holding my hand up because of the sunlight. So the practice here is to drive those heels into the ground, to lift my tail, my butt, off of the ground. Using the hamstrings, and then lower. Of course, lower. And so we can go up and hold it for a period. Nothing like laying on the frozen ground in January.
and then lower. So a nice number here might be 20 or so. Exhale through the effort. Breathe when you're in the position. Coordinate coming out of the position with an exhalation. Good. And, you know, if you're like post-surgical, you might have your feet quite close to the body. If you're feeling up to it, you might do this quite a bit further and come up. Careful not to try and help yourself up with the arms. I'm trying to let you see what I'm doing, but usually I just leave the arms down. So that is a little hamstring stretching and strengthening. Hey Kathy, I'm glad I could see your comment. Yeah, these are Catch Can live streams, so it's just whenever I eke out a half hour. I'm trying to do one every day. I think I have so far. So if you're still on, or for anybody else, I do regularly scheduled private lessons and every other week clinics and all that kind of stuff. Zoom, in person, live, Patreon. But this is just something I'm trying to live stream, so when I can, I can. So let's come into our back stance before I run out of time and you run out of patience. So our back stance, the one that we've been working on anyway, is the feet pointing 90 degree 90 degrees offset from one another. I think that's going to be a little bit better. Good. So if I was to point them both in the same direction, I'd like to be a little bit wider than our usual horse stance, getting into a training horse stance, which I don't know if we covered exactly, but that could be one that we get to, sumo stance. So opening the foot 90 degrees. So I'm essentially in this capital L kind of shape, meaning I have a long leg and a short leg to the L, and those legs being my feet, if that's not confusing enough. So in a back stance, we can have our weight forward, we can have it anywhere in the middle, and we can have it to the back, to the rear, to that short leg side, meaning the short leg of the L, the letter. And that's most ordinarily what it's going to do. People will settle into the rear, and they might face the short leg side, the open side, or the long leg side, or somewhere in the middle, of course. I find that most people leave out staying forward in a back stance. Right? A back stance generally provides you the ability to go back without taking a step, expecting footing, looking for footing, and having to take the time to take a step just to shift. So that could be to come into range, come out of range. It could be to come into range, get something, and come back. So this is something I've used when I'm like picking herbs and fruit. Like try to get a hold of it and then shift. So it's just my stance that is removing the fruit from the vine, for example. Or of course in martial arts, go in there, get something you want, and come back to where you're stable and they're not. So I'm just starting on the front leg, so I'm tracking that knee. I really want to track the knee where my weight is. In this case, I'm not tracked, so it's a little collapsed in, but there's no weight, so it's no problem. But I'd still rather not have it collapse as much as it might want. I'd like to give it a little bit of sense of open, so I feel that in the small, the back, and the quad, and the hips in general. I think what we'll do, I'm just going to shift to practice the tracking, and I'll just stay here for a minute, I think. What I'd like to do is talk about a way to time a practice. I feel like I'm trying to be a little bit louder today. As I've said probably every time, Facebook doesn't let me use a microphone with the iPad, so all I get is just whatever the iPad's mic is, which seems to be just sort of okay. I'm about 15 feet from the thing, but it's moderately breezy to lightly breezy. But I also have my voice kind of raised today for whatever reason. Well, maybe it's okay. Good, we'll try the other side. I've been doing this kind of offset, so rather than head on or profile, I've been doing it with my feet going these two directions. So I'll check in. I'm glad you're back, Deirdre. Hopefully you're having a chance to do it this time or stay with it. Appreciate your comment the other day. So the thought that I had for the countdown, if you will, or the counting practice, is to have a triple countdown. So there's go down, stay down, and rise up. And we do a countdown for each. We can switch the ratios of these countdowns. I was making notes here about the class we're currently doing. I just want to make sure it's synchronized before I turned it off. I'm trying to label everything we do and tag it so that people can look back later and not just have to watch the whole thing. They can say, oh, this is the one I wanted, or that's not the one I wanted. So I'm going to do this, I guess I'll switch since I was there for a minute. And what I want to do is I want to come into the weight and the height of the stance. Weight meaning I'm going to come into my right leg from my left. So adjust weight and adjust the height through a countdown. And I'm going to just say 10, just to pick a number. So 1, 1,000, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, and down. So I'm done. And then I'm going to do another 10 count while I'm here. 5, 8, and then a 10 count to come out. 3, 5, 8, and 10. So I just picked this sort of homogeneous count, that 10, 10, 10. But the count could be 10, 30, 10. It could be 30, 5 minutes, 30. It could be 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. It doesn't really matter. I was just doing a simple one. Kind of easy to count to 10, easy to follow along. So 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that was my 10 count, half of it coming to the weightedness, half of it coming to the height. Then I would have been counting here if I wasn't talking to you. And then work my way up. Maybe I'll do a 8 count coming up. And coming back forward. So we'll try that again. Shifting. And then finding our way down. Settling down. So remember, when we settle down, we want to have a feeling of the angle of the hip changing, the knee tracking, and the tailbone dropping in the direction of the Achilles or the heel, as opposed to the tail going to the rear, which is usually coincident with this sensation, which is coincident with too much change in the angle of the hip. So I'm settled here. Lifted from above, eyes to the horizon, breathing in the nose. And up, and then shift. Good, breathing the whole time. So this time I'm going to change the 10 count, just sticking with 10 for no good reason. So I'm going to, I'll start forward again. I'll go to the rear, the short leg side. 1, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 8, and 10. So in this 10 position, I've ended up open. So my belly button is between the 2 feet. So I'll be here for 10, and then I'm going to turn for 10 to face my short leg side, the fully open side. And I'll come back to the middle and be there for another 10. So that'll be 30 seconds at the bottom. And then I'll turn, careful to track that weighted knee, turn towards the front to the degree that I can. But really now I'm kind of addressing this more southerly direction of my left foot. Maybe a bit south-southeast, but close enough. And then come back to the center. That'll be my last 10. And then coming up and shifting for a 10 count. My guess is that for some of you, you were saying to yourselves, 10 seconds isn't very long. 10, then hold 10, then come up and back 10. But as soon as we had those other 10s, oh, that's a long time to be down there. So we'll try that on the other side. And then I'm guessing we're starting to be thinking about running out of time. I lost the stream, and I'm trying to be able to check in on anybody who might be with us. Okay, I don't see more comments. Maybe no comments is a good sign because you're busy standing and away from the keyboard. So here we go. Taking about, I'm just saying about 10 seconds. I'm not looking at a clock. And now I'm in my down position. For me, I'm down and open. That's a nice middle point, probably the easiest rotation of the trunk to have in a back stance. And then I'm going to turn to the short leg side, trying to turn from the whole trunk, not collapse this knee, although that's not as important as not untracking this femur. Maybe a few more seconds here. Then we'll come back to center. Give that 10 seconds. So generally back stance is a little bit bigger than many stances that we'd have. It allows us a fair amount of shifting and a fair amount of rise and fall. And then I'm going to turn to the long leg side, the long leg of the L, if you will, or turning towards my furthest foot, we could say, where my weight had begun. Careful not to turn just from the chest or the nose, but to turn from the lower center, keep the knee tracked. And then that's probably about 10. Come back to our center. Maybe you're starting to feel it now. And then we'll come up. Good. And what I'm thinking is we'll just do a back stance with a little bit of pivoting. So I'm going to just shift, unweighted leg, turns, shift onto it, turn the unweighted leg, turning wherever you'd like, but just kind of practicing coming into, I think we did a version of this for the drop stance as well. Just, and of course we could do this with a similar count as well. I don't know if you guys can see the clouds or not. Pretty beautifully pillowy. So there's the back stance. I'm kind of keeping my hands on the inner thighs with a little bit of outward pressure to just help measure are either one of them collapsing in? So am I untracking on the weighted side or collapsing in on the unweighted side? I really don't want to use my arms and chest to keep them where they belong, but I can kind of give them a little bit of feedback and get a little bit of awareness of where they are or what they want to do. So here's a slightly lower back stance, same idea, tracking. Sinking in. I will never fit my feet before I did this, but that's what we have. Okay. So, just a little bit of grape stomping, trying to be very loose. Maybe commit just a little bit of weight a little bit early so you get kind of a experience in the tissues of the body, just to loosen up. Good. So have a little bit of joy if you're stomping grapes. Good. That's our Randy Aaliyah practice, especially for Sifu Aaliyah. Okay. My guess is that's about all the time. So hopefully the volume was okay, and the plan will be to do the Qilin stance tomorrow. And I'll give you a preview of the Qilin, I guess. There she is with the beaver stick. So, oh, and there's those clouds I was talking about. All right, enjoy.